Adesewa was the kind of girl who turned heads wherever she went. She was beautiful, with smooth skin that seemed to glow in the sunlight and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. But Adesewa was more than just a pretty face. She was smart, really smart. Her teachers always praised her for being top of her class, and her mind was as sharp as her looks were striking. But beauty and brains weren't enough to make her brothers accept her. Oladayo, Olatunde, and Akinwumi never saw Adesewa as part of their family. To them, she was just the girl their parents had taken in after her own parents passed away in a tragic motor accident. Even though Adesewa was kind and did everything to fit in, her brothers kept her at a distance. In the grand living room of their home, Adesewa watched as the boys laughed together, completely ignoring her. They always did. No matter how much their parents loved Adesewa, her brothers refused to see her as one of them. They were jealous of her, though they'd never admit it. To them, Adesewa was an outsider who didn't belong. Adesewa sighed, feeling the familiar ache in her heart. She knew she was different, but all she wanted was to be accepted. Still, she had something her brothers couldn't take away: her beauty, her brains, and her determination to prove them wrong. When Adesewa was first adopted, she was a quiet, shy girl who had lost everything. The boys were older, and they didn't understand why their parents brought her into their home. To them, she was a stranger. As time passed, their resentment grew. They couldn't stand the way their parents doted on Adesewa, treating her with the same love and care as they did their own sons. Oladayo, Olatunde, and Akinwumi felt threatened by Adesewa. They saw her beauty and intelligence as something dangerous, something that could take away their parents' attention. They started to make life difficult for her, finding little ways to show that she didn't belong. They would laugh at her mistakes, hide her belongings, and whisper cruel things when their parents weren't around. Adesewa tried to ignore them, but their words and actions hurt. She wanted so much to be part of the family, but no matter what she did, the boys wouldn't accept her. They treated her like an outsider, and every small act of kindness from their parents only made them more resentful. But Adesewa was strong. She knew she had to be, because one day, she would show them all just how wrong they were. Adesewa's beauty and brains made her stand out at school. She was always at the top of her class, and her teachers were proud of her. But her brothers hated seeing her succeed. They couldn't stand the idea of Adesewa being better than them, so they decided to make things difficult for her. They would ruin her homework, hide her school books, and spread lies about her to the other students. "You'll never be good enough," Olatunde sneered one day after tearing up one of her essays. Adesewa fought back tears, determined not to let him see how much it hurt. Even though Adesewa knew her brothers were trying to sabotage her, she refused to give up. She studied harder, stayed up late to redo her assignments, and ignored the rumors they spread. She knew she had something special, something they couldn't take away. Her intelligence was her strength, and she was determined to use it to rise above their cruelty. Every time she succeeded, Adesewa felt a little stronger. She knew her brothers would never accept her, but she was starting to realize that she didn't need their approval. She had her own path to follow, and she was determined to walk it, no matter what they did to try and stop her. Adesewa's mother, Omawumi, was the one person who believed in her completely. Omawumi had been a successful businesswoman and knew how hard it was to succeed in a world that wasn't always fair. She saw the same strength in Adesewa and made sure to support her in every way possible. Omawumi would spend hours teaching Adesewa about business and life. They would sit together, going over numbers, strategies, and plans. Omawumi always told Adesewa, "You have both beauty and brains, my dear. Use them wisely, and you can do anything." Adesewa cherished these moments with Omawumi. They made her feel loved and important, like she was meant for great things. But as Adesewa grew stronger and more confident, her brother's resentment grew too. They hated that Omawumi was teaching Adesewa all the things they should have learned. Instead of being happy for her, they saw it as another reason to dislike her. But Adesewa didn't let that stop her. She knew Omawumi believed in her, and that gave her the strength to keep going. She promised herself that she would make Omawumi proud, no matter what her brothers said or did. When Adesewa won a scholarship to study abroad, it felt like she was finally getting a chance to prove herself. The scholarship was a big deal, and Adesewa was overjoyed. But her brothers didn't share her excitement. "You're just a girl," Oladayo sneered. "You'll never make it on your own." But Adesewa was determined. She knew this was her chance to show everyone, including her brothers, what she was capable of. She worked hard, preparing for the challenges ahead. The thought of making her parents proud kept her going, even when things got tough. When Adesewa received her acceptance letter, her heart soared. But her brothers were cold and dismissive, saying it didn't matter because she would never succeed. Adesewa didn't let their negativity get to her. She knew she was on the right path. As she packed her bags, ready to leave for her studies, Adesewa felt a mix of excitement and fear. But more than anything, she felt a sense of hope. This was her first big victory, and she knew it wouldn't be her last. Adesewa was ready to take on the world and show everyone that she was more than just a pretty face. After finishing her studies abroad, Adesewa returned home with new skills and a renewed sense of purpose. She landed a job at a top company in the city, where her beauty and brains quickly made her stand out. Adesewa thrived in the fast-paced business world, using everything she had learned from Omawumi and her own experiences. Her brothers, however, were not doing well. They had always relied on their family's name to get ahead, but without hard work, they were falling behind. They watched Adesewa's success with growing jealousy. "She thinks she's better than us," Olatunde muttered one day as Adesewa walked into the living room after work, full of confidence. But Adesewa didn't care what they thought. She focused on her work, impressing her bosses and earning respect from her colleagues. Adesewa knew she had to work twice as hard to prove herself, but she was ready for the challenge. Slowly, she began to see that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. As Adesewa's career soared, her brothers plotted against her. They couldn't stand seeing her succeed, especially when their own lives were falling apart. But Adesewa was stronger now, and she wasn't about to let them bring her down again. Adesewa's hard work and intelligence led her to start her own business. It wasn't easy, but she was determined to make it succeed. Her company quickly gained attention for its creative ideas, and Adesewa was recognized as one of the brightest young entrepreneurs in the city. Her brothers were furious. They couldn't understand how Adesewa, the girl they had always underestimated, was now outshining them. They tried to sabotage her at every turn, spreading lies and using their connections to block her business deals. But Adesewa was ready for them. She had learned from the best, Omawumi, and she wasn't about to let them ruin her dreams. As Adesewa's company grew, so did her confidence. She began to realize that she didn't need her brother's approval. She was strong, smart, and capable of achieving anything she set her mind to. And for the first time, Adesewa felt like she was truly in control of her own destiny. But the brothers weren't done with their schemes. They couldn't stand seeing Adesewa succeed, and were more determined than ever to bring her down. Adesewa knew she had to stay strong and keep pushing forward, no matter what obstacles they threw in her path. As Adesewa's success continued to grow, Adewale started to see the differences between his children more clearly. Adesewa was thriving, while Oladayo, Olatunde, and Akinwumi were struggling to keep up. Adewale had always believed his sons would take over the family business, but now he wasn't so sure. Adesewa had shown she had the skills and determination needed to keep the business strong. But the thought of choosing Adesewa over his sons troubled him. Adewale loved all his children, but he couldn't ignore the fact that Adesewa had worked hard for her success, while the boys had taken everything for granted. Adewale knew the family business was in trouble and needed someone who could save it. Someone like Adesewa. Adewale struggled with his decision. He wanted to believe in his sons, but deep down, he knew they weren't ready. Adesewa, on the other hand, had proven herself time and time again. Adewale knew what he had to do, but he also knew it would cause a rift in the family. And that was something he wasn't sure he was ready to face. Oladayo, Olatunde, and Akinwumi's lives were falling apart. They had always thought they could rely on their family name and connections, but now, their poor choices were catching up with them. Their businesses were failing, and they were losing the respect of everyone around them. Oladayo's risky investments had turned sour, leaving him broke. Olatunde's deals had landed him in legal trouble, ruining his reputation. Akinwumi's personal life was in chaos, with relationships crumbling under the weight of his arrogance. The brothers had always looked down on Adesewa, but now, they were the ones struggling while she was thriving. The brothers couldn't face the truth, that their own actions had led them to this point. Instead, they blamed Adesewa for their problems, convincing themselves that if she hadn't been around, things would have been different. Desperate and angry, they decided to make one last attempt to bring Adesewa down. They planned to sabotage her business, hoping it would ruin her reputation and force her out of their lives. But they didn't realize just how strong Adesewa had become. She was ready for whatever they threw at her. The family business was in serious trouble, and Adewale knew it. He realized he had no choice but to ask Adesewa for help. It was a difficult decision, but Adewale knew she was the only one who could save the business. Adesewa was surprised when Adewale approached her. She had always wanted to prove herself, but she never expected her father to ask her to take on such a big responsibility. Adesewa knew stepping in would mean facing her brother's anger head-on, but she couldn't let the family business fail. Not after everything her parents had done for her. Adesewa agreed to help, but she made it clear that she would do things her way. The brothers were furious when they found out. They saw it as a betrayal, another sign that Adesewa was trying to take everything from them. But Adesewa was determined to prove herself, not just to her father, but to the whole world. With the weight of the family business on her shoulders, Adesewa knew she was facing the biggest challenge of her life. But she was ready. She had worked hard to get where she was, and she wasn't about to let anyone take that away from her. Adesewa stepped into her new role as leader of the family business with confidence. She knew the company was in trouble, but she also knew she had the skills to turn it around. The employees were unsure at first, but Adesewa quickly won them over with her clear vision and strong leadership. She introduced new strategies, cut unnecessary costs, and focused on innovation. Slowly but surely, the business began to recover. The employees started to see Adesewa as the leader they had been waiting for. Her brothers, however, were furious. They couldn't stand seeing Adesewa succeed where they had failed. The brothers tried to undermine her at every turn, but Adesewa was always one step ahead. She had learned from Omawumi how to be smart and strong, and she wasn't about to let them sabotage her again. The brothers found themselves pushed aside, watching as Adesewa took control and restored the company's reputation. For the first time, Adesewa felt like she belonged. She was finally being recognized for her hard work and talent, and it felt good. But she knew her brothers wouldn't give up easily. They were still plotting, and Adesewa had to stay vigilant if she wanted to keep the business, and herself, safe. The brothers were desperate. Everything they had tried to stop Adesewa had failed, and now they were out of options. In a last-ditch effort, they decided to take extreme measures to bring her down. They planned to sabotage a major deal that Adesewa was working on, hoping it would ruin her reputation and force her out of the business. But Adesewa had grown wise to their tricks. She anticipated their moves and made sure she was prepared. When the day of the deal arrived, Adesewa handled everything with grace and confidence, outmaneuvering her brothers at every turn. The deal went through without a hitch, and Adesewa's reputation soared even higher. The brothers were left with nothing. Their plan had backfired, and now they were the ones facing ruin. Adesewa, on the other hand, was stronger than ever. She had proven that she could handle anything they threw at her, and now there was no stopping her. But Adesewa didn't take pleasure in their downfall. She had always wanted to be part of the family, not destroy it. And as she looked at her brothers, she realized that they had only hurt themselves in their quest to bring her down. Adewale had been watching everything closely. He saw how Adesewa had stepped up, saved the business, and outmaneuvered her brothers at every turn. He knew it was time to make a difficult decision. The family business needed a strong leader, and Adewale knew that leader had to be Adesewa. When Adewale told Adesewa that he wanted her to take over the business, she was shocked. She had worked so hard, but she never expected this. It was a dream come true, but it also meant facing her brother's anger. They would never forgive her for taking what they believed was theirs. But Adewale was firm. He explained that Adesewa had earned this position through hard work and dedication, while her brothers had only wasted their opportunities. It wasn't an easy choice, but Adewale knew it was the right one. Adesewa accepted the responsibility with a heavy heart. She had always wanted to make her parents proud, but she didn't want to hurt her brothers. However, she knew this was her chance to prove that she was more than just the unwanted sister. She was ready to lead, and nothing would stand in her way. The brothers couldn't believe what had happened. Adesewa, the girl they had always looked down on, was now in charge of the family business. They felt betrayed and humiliated. Their lives had fallen apart, and now they had nothing left. The realization that their own actions had led to this was a bitter pill to swallow. Oladayo's failed investments left him broke. Olatunde's legal troubles cost him his reputation, and Akinwumi's personal life was in shambles. They were no longer the powerful figures they once thought they were. They had lost everything, while Adesewa had gained it all. But Adesewa didn't gloat over their downfall. She felt sad for her brothers, even though they had treated her so badly. She had always wanted to be part of the family, not destroy it. Adesewa decided to offer them a chance to rebuild their lives, but only if they were willing to change. The brothers, humbled by their failures, began to see that their hatred for Adesewa had only led them to ruin. For the first time, they started to understand that maybe, just maybe, they had been wrong all along. Adesewa stood in her office, looking out over the city. The family business was thriving, and for the first time, she felt at peace. She had worked hard to get here, overcoming every obstacle her brothers had thrown in her path. Now, she was the leader of the family, and she knew she had earned it. But Adesewa's journey wasn't just about proving herself. It was about finding her place in the world, about realizing that she was strong, capable, and deserving of love and respect. She had reclaimed her legacy, not just as a successful businesswoman, but as a valued member of the family. Her brothers, though still struggling, had begun to change. They were no longer the arrogant, cruel boys who had tormented her. They were starting to see the world differently, to understand that Adesewa wasn't their enemy. Maybe, with time, they could rebuild their relationships and become the family they were always meant to be. As Adesewa looked out at the city, she knew her story was far from over. There were still challenges ahead, but she was ready for them. With her parents' love, her own determination, and the lessons she had learned, Adesewa knew she could face anything the future had in store.